Hackett here from Kirstenhof, the great Hof of the southern suburbs. Margie, you lost 45 kilos. That's insane. How are you doing?
I'm well, thanks, Jonno, and a bit anxious being here today, but I'm quite happy with my weight loss anyway.
That's cool. So take us back to before you sort of discovered Real Meal Revolution. If I'm right, it was like the early tens, so 2000 and something. Tell us about your health and your weight and how you felt about life in general at that point.
Okay, around about there, I suppose at that stage of my life, I was diabetic. I had sleep apnea. I had acid reflux. I had a hernia, and just generally heavy and not very comfortable. And I probably struggled with quite a lot of inflammatory pain from being diabetic. And walking, my feet used to burn when I sort of did excessive walking, etc. So generally, I think on my sort of aches and pains, there were quite a lot, but I still enjoyed life. I enjoyed my kids, my grandchildren, my husband, and my work, actually.
That's great. So you had a rich life apart from your health, and so that was around. So you're 70 now. So I'm only saying that because it's on the website. Not I would never ever guess a woman's age, but so that's 60s. And what was the journey of your weight like before that? So what was your experience of weight and trying to lose weight throughout your life up until that point?
Okay, so probably I realized, looking back on things, I was insulin resistant from quite a young age. I grew up in a citrus estate where fruit was abundant. We had loads of fruit trees in our garden of different sorts. Looking back at a photograph, I was in Joburg recently with my younger brother, and I saw one of us together. I think he was probably about 9, I must have been 12, and I was clearly insulin resistant. I'd sort of already started to gain a few pounds. And then I suppose went to boarding school. I was sort of slightly overweight, but not tremendously so. And then I went nursing, and also, but probably 18, 19, 20s is when I first started all my different diets. And there I've done probably all the Weight Lessers, the Weight Watchers. I remember one was a doctor's diet in Zimbabwe, and you could always tell who was on his diet because I think for one, he gave you, I think, thyroid hormone. So you lost weight dramatically fast, but you had to walk, and you had to walk with big strides and swing your arms so you could spot all Dr. So-and-so's patients on the road. And it just continually sort of on different diets, actually, throughout my sort of adulthood. And I've worked out recently that I've probably put on, if you look at from the 60s when I left school, the end of the 60s, almost 10 kilograms per decade, maybe even a fraction more.
Just consistently going up.
Just constant. I think definitely I put on quite a lot of weight with my last child, Danielle, and I was tested then for glucose tolerance, which was negative. But I come from a family of diabetics, and then moved on to, I would say my biggest weight gain probably in my 40s, where I just was going up and up and up. And I was diagnosed with diabetes probably in my mid to late 50s, and then with sleep apnea and everything that came with it. So
what do you think?
Always on diet.
Yeah, I'm off script, but what happened in your 40s? Do you think that made you put on weight?
Suppose we moved here when I was probably mid 30s. Maybe just stress. Also, I think when I moved here, I said to my husband, Kevin, I said, we've come to a country where you've got all this low fat food, available. It's It's everywhere. And I said, yet I'm getting fatter and fatter. So I was eating low fat, and I think you get to a stage where, because you are insulin resistant, eating the wrong diet, you're driven. I think your body is dry. I used to think I was absolutely weak and had no willpower whatsoever, but I was driven into the kitchen every morning because I'd been having wheat bricks with skim milk for breakfast, which I used to hate. And yeah, so I think that was maybe not depression. I think it was a case of a new country, getting used to everything new, etc. We also started business from scratch, so it was probably quite a stressful period to begin with. Came from Zimbabwe and just opened the doors.
And then so you were diagnosed with diabetes, you said late 50s, and then so that would have been like in 2006, 7, something along those, like somewhere around then.
And probably actually even no, not late 60s, in my 50s. So it would have been before, probably in the 90s, the late 90s.
Okay.
I think. Yeah.
That's
because I know Daniel
cool.
was still at school when I had sleep apnea, and I wasn't on treatment yet. And I would struggle to drive from here to Wynberg at lunchtime to fetch her. And when I got there, I would pass out. And I never, ever used to need an afternoon nap. And then she'd come knock on the window. I'd let her. And unfortunately, she had her learners. So she would get in the driver's seat and drive home. So it was quite serious at that stage. It was very debilitating, actually.
Yeah,
and I think the whole chunk of my life, I don't remember when movies we'd watch again, and they'd say, "You've seen it." I said, "Well, I certainly haven't seen it."
Wow. And so then, okay, so you lived with those conditions and they got worse and worse. And then you discovered Real Meal Revolution, or was it Tim Noakes's talks first? But at some point things changed in the sort of early 10s.
Yes. Yeah.
Tell me about that. How did your mind sort of change and realize that perhaps there was different alternatives?
I think when we first came across it, we went to his lecture, and we'd been trying to diet a bit, and I'd lost maybe 6 to 8 kilograms, but that was slow. Then we went to his lecture in 2013, and I'm not sure whether it was at the same time. Would we have bought your book then, your Real Meal Revolution, the red one?
Yeah. That was that time.
Yeah, and then my sister-in-law was out from Scotland, and actually she bought quite a few and took them back with her. So she was another convert, although she was very skinny. And then we followed the sort of Banting keto group, like Diet Doctor Jason Fungberg, and we're just sort of educating ourselves continuously on keto, and realizing that it obviously does work. And so I think we dabbled with it a bit, but probably eating too much fat and various other things, and then maybe being on keto and then adding a bit of carb at times. So we lost, I suppose did lose, I'm trying to think when I know 2000, let me just check. I'm not sure when I lost most of my weight, but I think when I joined you in 2020,
yes,
the second time. Or am I jumping too far ahead? Do you want to go back?
No, that's cool. So I think the short version of the story is that, like, the book came out in 2013, and you lost weight when you followed the diet. And then you kind of, like, I wouldn't say yo-yoed,
but we yo-yoed. We would do it and then we'd stop. And I think had no real plan of where I was going.
Yes.
And were delighted when you lost a bit of weight, etc.
Yeah.
But then obviously slipped back into old ways again.
Okay. And then lockdown hit, and you said, and Danny was the first to join. and then she recruited you to join Real Meal Revolution.
Yes,
right?
yeah, actually it was, first of all, I think what also, before she joined, I had a heart attack at the beginning of COVID.
Wow.
And I think that, and my blood, I think cholesterols were in the 7s, my blood HbA1cs were in the 9s. But at that stage, I actually had got down to 90. So at the beginning of 20, I was weighing 90 Ks. And then the heart attack happened, etc. And while I was staying with my other daughter, Jackie, who you also know, I was there for 2.5 months. And when I moved back home, I think the emotional side of things kicked in again, sort of on my own again, lockdowns, that things were quite different. And in the first probably a month or so, I put on about 6-7 Ks again. So I was basically up to about 97. And then because I think at one stage I'd go out and buy a chocolate. Next time I'd buy 2 for the next 2 days, then 3, and they were all gone on the same day. So then I thought, no, really, I've got to actually, I've got to get myself back on track.
Yeah.
And I'd started sort of cutting down, obviously not going out to buy the chocolates, and just sort of getting more keto diet again. And then Danielle said to me, I'm joining this program. I said, well, she said, why don't you join? I said, I'm not joining another diet program in my life. I said, because I've been there, I've done that. And then she sort of, I think maybe I watched her for a little bit, and then I thought, oh, well, she said, let me register you. And when I registered, to my surprise, I got a big benefit through, I think it was Momentum.
Yes,
yeah. So I said, well, it's actually a no-brainer. I might as well try it. It's not costing me a fortune, etc. And that's how I got into join you again, or join you officially this time around.
Yeah, so you joined the online course basically, and so what was your experience of the online course? Because you said you didn't really want to join another diet program, but then you did. And you're still a member, so it's something like it wasn't that terrible.
Yeah. So it was a completely different experience altogether, because there was obviously the weight in discussion, but generally was a completely different format. I mean, for instance, you've got your whole RMR app with the diet, the tracking, and I must say I probably didn't use the menu plan sufficiently, but I did enjoy the menus, and I would track, go and even just use your tracker to see if I was eating something. So I was becoming very much more aware of what I was eating and what it was going to do to my body. And also, I think then what I also found was absolutely sort of blew my mind away were your lectures on the Friday sessions with your mindset. And it's basically mostly, well, it is in the mind. And then Bridget with all her dietary information, and Victoria, who's working on the emotional side, which I don't like to necessarily go to. So it was really, I found it really motivating. And the fact I was also losing weight and so going into things like fasting, OMADs, 1 meal a day, and just the general tracking and knowing actually when you're doing things, what it's actually doing. So it was very, very different to what I had anticipated on any other program.
Oh, that's great. So, and then, so then you did the online course for a few months, and then you signed up to join. Did you sign up for the Hero Program pilot?
Yes, we were on your sort of first, the guinea pig crew.
Yes. Yeah. And what was your experience of that? Because I think there'll be people watching this to understand how the online course works with the weekly workshops and the tools and the tracking and everything. But the Hero program is like totally different. How would you describe the Hero program?
I think the Hero program, I think to begin with, I think the first week or two was a little bit sort of, didn't quite know what was going on half the time. But I think that breaking up into with a coach and a fellow groups, some of our group did fall away, but we were left, I think, with the 3, and we all got on very well, and I think progressed quite well and learned a lot on tracking and the process goals. And because basically, I think when I've dieted before, I've said I want to lose 40 kilograms, but it's not doable without sort of a plan of action.
Yes.
And I think definitely your process goals, progress, whatever, perfection and all that, you'd be able to explain it better than me. So I did really find that very beneficial. And it also kept you accountable, and you had to think about what you were doing if you were going to be doing something that maybe wasn't going to aid your weight loss.
So just to clarify on the process goal thing, you're saying that perhaps in the past everyone starts the diet and then they think it'll stop when they reach their goal of 40 kilos. But what was different was that we broke it down into small bite-sized chunks and focused more on the doing than on the outcome. So the outcome is like 40 kilos, but the doing is like eating a healthy meal today and then telling someone you've done it, basically. Is that what you're saying you benefited from?
Yes, I think so, because it was sort of like, I know it was eat the elephant, and I suppose as someone described it, you're eating a little bit of the elephant each time.
Absolutely. So what made you renew? Because you obviously you were in the free program as a pilot, and then you renewed again. So that means you've been now in the program for almost 9 months. What do you love about it?
I think I just do love the accountability, the support, and you're not alone. And the workshops, definitely on a Friday. I sometimes find it a bit difficult with work, etc. But I do try and watch them afterwards if I'm disturbed in my watching. And even though I've seen some of the lectures repeated, they always come with a different conversation in that actual workshop. So it's not wasted sort of doing it again. And I think it also just makes each time sort of think more about what your issues are. And there is the accountability. You've got people you have to report back to. And so, and I think hopefully we can help each other sort of through sort of difficult times, etc.
So you've lost, I mean, the banner says you lost 45 kilos over this time. And I know that I'll say even in the testimonial on our website, it says you lost 13 over 6 months. I don't know what it is now, because that was about 2 months ago that we wrote that.
So now I did join for the 3rd time, but this time I think you'd introduced a different sort of angle, maybe not just food or diet related. So I opted for not concentrating on diet. I actually almost wanted to go solo and without reporting my weight, etc., and see how I managed. And actually, so far, my sort of process goal or outcome goal at the end is to have 12 new interactions with people that I have connected with and will keep in contact with for some reason or the other. And I also have actually continued, I suppose it's your habit stacking, without being told that this is my goal. I still do fast when I need to. I track every occasion, when I'm meals, etc. So I'm basically still, and I'm actually have lost weight, and not a lot,
Wow.
but I'm almost out of the 70s. I've got one and a bit to go. So, and my aim was, when Daniel said join this thing, I said, well, maybe I should try and get to the 70s by my 70th. And I was in the 70s by my 70th, not 70, but I'm almost at the 70. And yeah, so without thinking, I'm still doing what I should be doing.
That's amazing. And what has the relationship been? Well, what has the change in your relationship been like with food? You mentioned something else, that you don't think about food as much. Could you just share a little bit about that? You know, thinking about it versus how you feel now.
Yeah. Okay. I think probably not thinking about food or being totally obsessed with food is because I'm not hungry. You know, in the past, my mind was always on what am I going to eat next, because I was always hungry. And I had sort of I was on insulin and diabetes and glucomed. Glucomed I'd been on for a number of years, and I just dramatically gained weight. And I was always hungry. And then I was put on metformin, which probably slowed the hunger a little bit, but by then I was already right up there on the weight. And in 2014, when my husband died, I hadn't been on insulin very long, but we were banting more, and my blood sugars were often dropping. And so I was checking before jabbing myself at night, and my blood sugars were getting quite low, and I did wake up with quite a few very low blood sugars, because I was also wondering, would I wake up when a very low one came in? And then I thought, well, I'm stopping insulin. So that was my first number one goal, I think.
Was to cut out insulin.
I sort of yeah, and then because I was banting, I probably didn't need that extra insulin. And then I went through a stage where I went off the rails a bit, wasn't banting. And I'm not actually sure when, but I also stopped taking my glucomed somewhere between then and now. But I think it was quite a few years. And I thought, well, I'm stopping it because it does drive the hunger, etc. And then I was quite good with my diet. Then I went off the rails for a bit. And I think at the beginning of this year, I thought I've got to do what I'd said I was going to do. I've got to look at getting rid of my diabetic state. And so then, before, I'd always wanted to lose weight for aesthetics, I suppose, and feel better. But my driver of late has been health. And I don't know whether and by sort of working on the health, as I said, the weight is a byproduct of getting healthy. So
that's great.
I would suggest to people who are going to, or who are on meds, to maybe do it with the help of a doctor and reduce slowly. Look, I come from a medical background. My husband was a vet as well, and I always used to say to him, we are fed carbs, and we've got a problem with carbs. Cats with diabetes would be fed protein and fat. And I said, to me, the vets have got it right.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I mean, I remember our vet telling us, like, the earlier you get your pet on to kibble, the better, because then otherwise they turn their nose up at it, and the kibble was always high and great. Anyway, I don't want to start a pet food conversation now, but so I think the last thing I wanted to know really, Margie, is about your life. I think, and the reason I say this, a lot of people, they want to look amazing, and it's natural. Everyone wants to look great, and you look great, by the way. I wanted to share this.
Oh, thank you.
This is the. Are you ready? The before and after. That's the. Do you remember that photograph?
I do. And now the one on the left, or the green top, was 2005 actually. And I was in America. My first grandchild had just been born, and I looked absolutely whacked. And I think, to tell you the truth, I had lost a bit of weight for that trip.
So you look great, and obviously I can see, many people will look at the skinny legs and be like, oh my goodness, I can't believe it's the same person. And so congratulations on that. How has this changed your life though? Because it's not just about how you look. Obviously you look nice and that's wonderful, but how about how you feel and what it's done maybe with confidence and your energy and just the way you go about life? How are you feeling in general?
Yeah, look, energy wise, I think I have got a lot of energy. I do feel more confident. Like, I'm quite happy to go and do cold water swims at St. James Pool or whatever. And I'm not too worried about being in a costume, even though I might have a lot of loose, sort of blubbery skin, but I'm quite happy to do that. I must say, walking across a room of strangers, I don't feel as uncomfortable as I would have done maybe when I was 48 kilograms heavier.
Yes.
Look, I think I always felt I was quite confident, but maybe there was that underlying sort of niggle that, didn't feel totally great. So, I think life is quite enjoyable. I'm quite happy to do things. I'm also, I think one of the biggest advantages now is pain-free. I've got a knee that is not that great, but that used to trouble me ad nauseum. Now it worries me if I sort of bash it or sort of hurt it. And my hands were constantly, had huge edema of my hands, my feet, etc.
Really?
So that's all gone. So I do feel so much better. And I think I've also got the will. When I'm out, when I'm offered cakes, etc., I say, no thanks, I don't have those anymore. And I've sort of taken that on.
That's great.
Yeah.
You said, were you going to say some more? Or was that?
I suppose I probably had, I suppose health-wise, generally, I sort of had frequency of urine and was running to the loo. I suppose all the things that go with diabetes, of irritable bowel syndrome, etc., and all that has gone. And my arthrologist used to say to me, I saw him recently, and he said, I've got absolutely no inflammatory joints. And he said, I always told you diabetes was reversible. So I said, yeah, but it's not so easy when you're on meds, and just not easy when you're eating the wrong stuff. So, and I think definitely my mind is sharper. I used to have quite a lot of brain fog. When I, particularly now, I'll put something down and I'll sort of say to myself, remember, you've put it in an unusual place, and I actually can go and find it again.
That's great. And what about now? So you've got this, I'm interested in the mentality. So this is like an audit as well, but so you've lost the weight, and often when people lose the weight, they cross the finish line, and then over 2 years, they put it back on again. So I'm curious about how you see the future. Do you see this as something where you've ticked the box, like, okay, weight no longer an issue, or is it something different going forward?
No, I think for myself, and it has definitely occurred to me, and I said to Victoria a little while ago when I had a little bit of a binging session, and the binging came after I'd been away with family and everyone saying, wow, you're looking so good, this, that. And I find when people give compliments, you sort of think, oh, backpedal a bit. But I think I have realized I can't go back. Because if I don't continue with this lifestyle, I think, look, occasionally you could definitely have something that is out of the ordinary. But I think basically I enjoy this lifestyle. It doesn't, I feel good. I eat tasty food. In fact, probably far tastier than bread and junk before.
Yeah.
So I know for me, it does have to be a lifelong thing. And I think that's where the mind coaching has to sort of move forward as well. And I'm not, as Victoria will know, I don't love to talk about feelings and emotional things. So, but I know I do have to probably do a lot of that. And I think lifestyle, I think it's got to be a lifestyle as opposed to a diet. And I think I am very lucky in my immediate family, we all have bought into the keto, and we've all been on the same journey for quite a long time. Some, up and down. But I think now, I hope that I will continue on the right sort of track. And I will continue on the right track. I mustn't say hope. And what else was I going to say about that? I think also I do have to work on my emotional and social side. That's why this round I've actually quite enjoyed having to push myself and go out to places where on my own I may not normally sort of be keen to do. Yeah. So I think I am finally growing as an adult.
That's great. That's great. Margie, it's been such a pleasure hearing about your journey, and I'm sure everyone watching will have gained a lot from hearing you. And I hope that people watching have heard the transition, because what you explained in the beginning is, I think, what many people out there feel. And to see that you've kind of made it out the other side okay and still happy, in fact actually much better for it, is really good, because I think everyone's greatest fear is that they're going to have to give up this huge thing, and what you've shown is that there's much more to gain than there is to give up. So congrats to you on your transformation. It's amazing. And thank you so much.
Yeah, I just want to add one quick thing at the end. Is probably in my early 30s, I'd said to my mom, I'm starting this diet, and she said, oh, you'll never lose weight. I got so angry. I was on amphetamine, appetite suppressants, which are basically speed.
Yes, yeah.
I grabbed, it was a very flimsy bread basket, and I flung it across the table at her, and she was absolutely horrified. So was I think. But then I said to myself, then, I don't care if I get the size of a house, but I'm never taking another diet pill. And I haven't, and I've actually did both. I haven't taken another diet pill, and I did get the size of a house.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, well, thanks very much for chatting.
Okay, well, thanks for chatting.
All the best.
Okay, thank you.
Margie, take it easy.
Okay.